All right, should we go ahead and kick things off?
Sure, we can.
Awesome. Well, thank you to all of you who are in now and all of you that are coming in. I'm so excited to have so many faces of people who are looking to optimize their job search for meaning and passion, and hopefully, maybe a little bit biased, but for climate. I'm thrilled to have Gaurav Valani here with us today. He is the CEO and the founder of Career Sprout. This is a career company that is dedicated to helping professionals find meaningful work. He's also the former co-founder of TrueBridge Resources, a $72 million staffing agency that he helped grow prior to acquisition from the former vice president of talent at overstock.com. His mission is to help as many people as possible learn the exact strategies that helped him go from 10 dead-end jobs, laid off multiple times in a directionless career, to building a multi-million-dollar company, becoming one of the youngest executives of a publicly traded company, and helping thousands of people build purpose-driven careers. So again, we're so thrilled to have you here today. I think I'm going to learn a lot, so I'm excited to kind of just sit back and see. So yeah, thanks again, and we're thrilled to have you.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. And I hate when people introduce me in webinars because they say, can you send us a writer bio? And then I have to say all these things. So sorry if it looks like I'm bragging. I'm not trying to brag. I don't care about any of the things I've done. I mean, I care, but I don't care about like the monetary stuff. But I am very, very happy to be here. And yes, it will be recorded. I think it's already being recorded. And to anyone wondering, all of you will get access to the slides I'm about to share. I have 3 disclaimers. I think it's 3. Let me go down them before we start. So disclaimer number 1, I know this is for climate people, and I'm fully aware that most, if not all of you, probably want to get jobs in climate. I've made this entire presentation in a way that you can utilize all of the strategies that we're about to go through to where you can get a job in climate or outside of climate, right? Some of you may want to get out at some point. Some of you want to come back in at some point, right? Your careers are all long. So the strategies we share won't only be exclusive to climate, although everything you learn will be applicable to getting a job in climate. So that was disclaimer number 1. Disclaimer number 2, for those of you familiar with Canva, I used Canva to make this presentation. And if you see watermarks in any of this, it's because I didn't want to pay the $11 to remove the watermarks, because I am that cheap, in spite of the achievements you guys just heard. So sorry if you see watermarks. And then lastly, I was telling Natalie about this before you guys jumped on. And tell me if this is you. I've been a part of a lot of presentations held by people. And in those presentations, these types of webinars, there's so much fluff, right? Like by the end of the webinar, you almost feel like you didn't learn anything. And then you feel like you wasted your time. So I just, FYI, I do the complete opposite. There will be literally zero fluff, but there is so much tactical information in here. So just stay with me. There's going to be a lot of time for Q&A. But take a ton of notes, you guys, because I put literally everything I know about finding a high-paying job in this presentation. So with that, thank you for joining. Thank you, Natalie, for having me. And I'm going to share my screen and we can jump into it. So also, give me 1 second. I'm just putting the chats over here so I can read them as they come in. All right, so let's get into it. Let me start by just telling you, so Career Sprout, since 2016, we have now coached a little over 700 people. And without a doubt, I would say the biggest regret that most of our clients, and even when I do these talks, that most people have in their career, is they never took the time to figure out like how to think about their career holistically. How do you build your career in a way that aligns with who you are as a human, with your values? And then they, like, if they didn't know how to learn that, they certainly don't know how to reverse engineer a path, right? So they first never took the time to figure out where they're going, and then they obviously don't know how to get there. So then they kind of just drift around aimlessly. And the college I went to, our career services department never taught us this. They were just like, put together a resume, apply to as many jobs as you can, and take the first thing you could do because you got to pay off student loans. And I don't think that that's helpful advice, because you're starting your career off in a very like reactive manner. You're trying to just pay off your loan, so you take the first job that can come, and then before you know it, you've worked 3, 5, 7, 10 years, and you never did anything you truly found meaningful. So everything I want to show you today starts with the end in mind, figuring out what you want to do first, and then working yourself backwards. And why that's important. I think I just explained why that's important, right? So as I mentioned, as a result, when people don't take the time to figure out what they want to do and how they're going to get there, like I said before, they never end up living up to their potential. They feel a lot of FOMO because they see other people having quote unquote successful careers. They bounce around so much from one company to the next, and as a result, they never get really good at one thing. And if they never get really good at one thing, they never really get paid well. And then they just end up settling, and that's how their careers play out. And so that is what we're hoping to avoid. And the two things I think are really important is, one, regardless of where you are today and what you've experienced in your past, I can say this with firsthand experience, your past does not dictate your future. In fact, you want to leverage it in ways that empower your future. And we're going to talk about how to do that. And everything we learned today, I say this all the time, and I will never stop, but you literally are one job offer away from changing the entire trajectory of your career. And I am living proof of that. And we have so many clients who can attest to that. So please know that regardless of what has happened in your past, we can change that. Okay, so by the end of this webinar, what is the goal? Right? I want you to learn how to effectively navigate your job search so you can land multiple, not just one, but multiple high quality interviews at companies you actually want to work for, so that you ultimately land an offer at a place that you're happy with. And it's a job offer that sets you up not only for immediate success, but future success as well. And typically when you follow the steps I'm about to share, the clients that we work with have achieved this result on average within 67 days. This year, it might be a little bit over that because of the economy. It's like 71.2 or something. But they're doing this without applying to hundreds and hundreds of jobs, which is, so we'll share how we do that. Okay. You guys excited? Let me know in the chat if you are. We'll get to it. I have a question. I have an ask of you guys though, because I am giving you a ton of information. All I say is, if you find it valuable, don't keep it to yourselves. Please pay it forward and share it with as many people you think would be helpful. Okay. So pay it forward. Also, we're going to be doing a free giveaway. So somebody in this program, or sorry, in this webinar who's here, will receive a seat into our coaching program. Our coaching program ranges anywhere from like $7,000 all the way to $12,000. And so if you want to be eligible to win a seat in here, all we say is take a picture or a screenshot of something that you find valuable in this webinar today and share it either on your Instagram account or your LinkedIn account and just tag me. And these are my little handles right here. And then at the end of it, we'll select one person. We'll also make sure Natalie knows who that is so they can get in contact with you. And then once you've been selected, you'll be asked to reach out to me and we'll get you onboarded and you'll have a free seat in our program. Okay. And our program, just FYI, is for life. Now you don't pay for life. You get access to everything for life. All right. So with that, we can get started. I'm not going to go into this because Natalie already shared my background. Here's a clips of it. Here's what I've done. I used to sell Yellow Page ads, you guys. So like that does make me 500 years old. So if you feel like your career is not off to a good start, mine definitely was, because when I was selling Yellow Page ads, the internet was like literally there. And companies were like, why the hell are you asking me to publish something on Yellow Pages? So suffice it to say, if I could do what I did, I'm sure you guys could definitely do what you're trying to achieve. Okay. So let's do a quick recap of what's been happening in the last few years. As unless you've been living under a rock, you've seen since the beginning of this year, there have been 300,000 plus people unemployed. You see it all the time on LinkedIn, and it's really sad where people are getting laid off left and right, 20,000 layoffs here, 100,000 layoffs there, whatever. And there was a huge reason for that, right? When COVID kicked in, the government stimulated the economy with all this free money that led to overspending, which then led to inflation, which then led to people not being able to spend, which then led to interest rates rising. And so for whatever reason, companies are laying people off. But in our program, we're seeing completely different results. We are seeing people, like I said before, getting job offers in usually less than 67 days. And they're with companies they want to work for. Again, it could be within climate. We have had some people get jobs in climate, or it could be outside of climate. It doesn't matter. Okay. And so here's just a couple of examples in recent past of people that have gotten offers through our program utilizing the strategies I'm about to walk you through. Here's a bunch more examples. Not going to go into all these. This guy went through our program though, and he literally had no experience, took a boot camp, got a job, got stock, and that stock is now turned him into a millionaire. So a lot of cool stuff can happen when you take the time to be very intentional about what you're doing. Okay. All right. So spoiler alert, nothing that I'm going to teach you involves like black magic. It is literally just a predictable system that we have freaking mastered, that I've mastered, my team has mastered over the last, I don't know, since 2006, literally since I started. And it brings proven results. So we just have tweaked the system over and over and over again until we figured out how to just make sure that it gets you the results that you're looking for. So remember, if you find something valuable, share it, and one of you will get access to a free seat in our coaching program. Okay, so what are the 3 things that lead to success? The first thing is removing outdated beliefs, belief patterns, and focusing on your mindset. So we're going to spend just a few minutes talking about why mindset is so important when you start the job search. And you probably can get a good idea of why, right? Because when you start the job search process, it is riddled with disappointment. You can apply to 2, 3, 4, 500 jobs or more, and maybe hear back from like 2 or 3 or get few interviews. Then sometimes you get ghosted by recruiters. Then sometimes you go on all these interviews. You spend all this time prepping and showing up with so much enthusiasm, false enthusiasm in some cases. And then you get rejected. So there's a lot of like disheartening moments when you're going through the job search. And so having a really strong mindset, positive attitude, of course, helps a lot. And so we're going to talk about that. Then we're going to dive into the system. What is the actual system that you guys can use literally starting today to start seeing the changes or seeing the changes you want to see in your job search? And then how do you execute that system correctly? Okay, so let's start with mindset. There's typically 2 types of people in the world. There's people that have a fixed mindset, and there's a people that have growth. Fixed mindset is things are the way they are. Nothing good's going to ever happen. I'm not qualified enough for that. And a growth mindset is, oh, there are things I don't know. I need to learn that. If I learn and apply the things I'm learning, good things can happen to me. That is a growth mindset, right? I truly believe, here's a watermark, you guys, surprise, surprise. I truly believe that you can achieve the things you want to achieve in your career when you are open to growing. So I truly believe like you should be a lifelong learner, knowing that there's never enough learning that you can do. And the more you learn and the more you apply what you learn, the more you can see the results you want to see. And why is it that most people struggle with mindset in the first place? I think it's very simple. I've dealt with a lot of limiting beliefs growing up. I didn't go to a good college. Heck, I told you I started off selling yellow page ads when all of my friends were getting jobs at Google and Amazon. And I'm South Asian. If any of you are South Asian in here, your parents like expected you to be a doctor and a lawyer. And so imagine, what my parents were thinking when I was selling yellow page ads and then couldn't land a stable job for the next 6 years after that. It's because we're fighting decades of entrenched beliefs. These are beliefs that have been ingrained in us, right? By our parents, our grandparents, people that we grew up around. They all grew up in harder times than the ones we're in. So they always said, get a job, stay with that job for 30 years, save as much money as you can, buy a home, and that's it. That's your life. That's your definition of success. So those are like the beliefs that we're grown up in. So then when we get laid off or when we're not able to figure out what we want to do, those limiting beliefs pop right back up into the forefront of our minds. And this is why I do think that the mindset that you have, that you're carrying around with you as you're doing your job search or you're doing any sort of endeavor, is directly visible in the choices that you've made all throughout your life. And especially visible in the choices you are making daily, and not even the choices you're making, but the things that you are thinking, right? It is, your mindset it's visible, based on how you think, literally day in, day out, that's putting a footprint into your mind. So we have to change that first, right? And like I said before, your mindset is usually built by accidents. It usually kind of builds slowly over time. One of the things that I found to completely change my mindset, regardless of how crappy I was feeling or the limiting beliefs I was carrying around, is once you put yourself in a room where other people's realities are your goals, everything changes, because you can now see what is possible. So to the best of your ability, you always want to surround yourself with people who are doing the things that you hope to achieve, because then you know it is possible for you. Success leaves a lot of clues, you guys. So what are some of these experiences that we grew up with? Well, it's how you were raised, like we talked about before. It could be the social circles you surround yourself with, could be people that bullied you. I was certainly bullied growing up. Outdated belief patterns like the ones my parents hold, their parents held, what you're taught in school, and just the information you choose to consume. I know so many people that go on LinkedIn every day and they get so discouraged from even trying to apply to a job, because all they see on LinkedIn is, I'm getting laid off, I got laid off, I'm open to work, this. And if that's all you're choosing to focus on, then of course you're going to believe, well, if they're not getting any jobs and they come from the Googles of the world, how can I get a job? I mean, I'll be the first to tell you it's the furthest thing from the truth, but it's hard to really overcome that when all you're choosing to consume is negative information. So how do we change all of this then? It's through a process called brain plasticity. It's adopting new belief patterns, choosing what you're going to consume, what you're going to read, who you're going to surround yourself with, having faith, having belief, having that growth mindset. Like I said, when you start putting yourself in a room or around people who are doing the things you hope to be doing one day, everything starts to change for you. So mindset affects your outcome, which ultimately affects your happiness. And it removes you from the obstacle. When you choose to believe that once you adopt a growth mindset, you can remove yourself as the obstacle. And I think the last point is true. The only belief that matters is that you can grow and that you will always keep getting better. Okay, here's some quick mindset shifts you can make today. These are very common limiting beliefs over on the left, especially this one: leaving my job is too risky, right? I have gaps on my resumes. No one's going to want to hire me, right? I'm laid off, so I shouldn't even negotiate. These are limiting beliefs. Have any of you felt that or heard that or ever thought that? So quick story. You know, when Natalie talked about, I built a staffing agency. It wasn't me who did it by myself, but I built it with a lot of other people. And I was 28 years old. Up until then, I had never made more than, I think, $50,000. Okay. I told you I'd sold Yellow Page ads, had a bunch of failed jobs. And I had a job and I really hated it. And I was like, I should start my own staffing agency, because I just want to, I know that I believe that if I do it the right way, we can grow this thing. And I was so scared to do it. And this is right around the time, FYI, when I met my wife. She was my girlfriend back then, and she was a teacher. Now she was making virtually the same amount of money as me. I think she was actually even making more than me. But she was a teacher. I had this just a bunch of dead end jobs. So I was even more scared to leave my job to start a company, just because I was like, we're never going to make any money. And I thought about, I'd fail all the time. My dad, just so you guys know, when he moved here from India and Africa, for the first, I think 4.5 years, he never made more than, I think, $10,000 a year. And my mom had to work 2 jobs to kind of support us. So I didn't grow up around having my parents around me. And so think about like that belief system, right? What like that ingrained in me, right? And so I had a mentor tell me, he's like, hey, listen, if you start this company and it fails, well, what's the worst case scenario? And I said, well, I guess I'd go back to recruiting like I am doing today. And he said, well, then how does it feel to be living your worst case scenario? And that question alone hit me like a ton of bricks. And he was right. And so that, like, everything I'm about to teach you, like once we start getting into the strategy, you might feel like, dang, this is a lot. And it is a lot. Well, what's the worst case scenario if it doesn't work? Well, you end up where you are today, right? But I can assure you, and like with every fiber of my being, that if you apply these steps, step by step by step, you will see a lot more changes than in like favorable changes that will get your career headed in the right direction, right? And like I said before, you're only one job offer away from changing the entire trajectory of your life. So remove the doubt and just take action, or be aware of the doubt and just take action anyway. Oops, there's a typo right there. Horrible. Okay. Set expectations accurately. Okay. Some of you may have heard me talk about this. I think that searching for a job is very similar to playing baseball. For those of you who know who Derek Jeter is, he was this Hall of Fame baseball player, played for the New York Yankees. He said in an interview once, he's actually said this many times, that baseball is a game of failure. What that means is, if you can hit the ball 3 out of 10 times it's pitched to you, you make it to the Hall of Fame. And above average players hit the ball a little over 2 out of 10 times, right? So a little over 2 out of 10 times you're above average, and 3 out of 10 times you're in the Hall of Fame, which means 7 out of 10 to 8 out of 10 times you are striking out. And he's like, once I understood that, it changed everything. He's like, because those 2 or 3 hits that I make will be so impactful. And same thing with the job search. Yes, it is very disheartening when you're interviewing and you don't get the job. I agree. And I know that. I know how it feels. I've been laid off myself many times. All right, a couple times. But if you're interviewing with 10 companies or 6 companies or 5 companies and 2 of them reject you, 3 of them reject you, who cares? Because the 2 offers that you do get, or the 1 offer you do get, could change the entire trajectory of your career. So set expectations accurately. No, there's nobody on this planet, or nobody I've met yet, that has secured a job offer after every interview they've gone on. Okay. They don't hear back after every time they send out an application. It's not a big deal. It's not the end of the world. And if we know that going in, then it makes it a lot easier to cope with. Right? So expectations and reality have to be aligned. All right. Watermark number 2. Proven system. So what is the system? We covered mindset. Now let's go into the system. And before I show you the system, I want to tell you this. You can't tell right now, well, because there was once a time where I was in really, really, really good shape. And it's because I hired a trainer. And I remember when I first met with a trainer, before we ever started working out, he said, look, I'm going to give you the exact workout routine you need to do. I'm going to give you your exact diet plan. And then here's your recovery plan: workout, diet, recovery, right? You need to follow these things the way I'm telling you to do them. And then what he would do is I would have to meet with him every Monday. And he would ask me, what did you eat this weekend? And I specifically remember one Monday, I met with him in the morning. He said, what did you eat this weekend? And I said, I had a few cheesecakes. And like I told him I had 2 cheesecakes. I really had like 4 slices of cheesecake. I love cheesecake. And he lost it. He's like, what the hell? Don't you know that that's going to ruin like your macronutrient or whatever the word was? And he like got so pissed. He's like, you're not going to see the results you want if you're eating things like cheesecake, especially if you're eating like 2 cheesecakes. Little did he know it was like 4, right? So the same thing with this. The system that I'm about to show you, the step-by-step process, please follow it in the order I'm going to teach it to you, because if you jump around, it's really hard to see the results you're going to want to see. So don't eat the cheesecake. Yes, you guys, are we with me so far? Because now we're going to get into all the tactical stuff. And I'm going to take a sip of water. Are you guys going to eat the cheesecake? Okay, nobody's responding. That makes me fearful. Okay, finally. Cheesecake is my weakness. Don't eat the cheesecake or pizza, or have some as we celebrate. All right, you guys. Okay, what is the old way of applying or searching for a job? Why do most people start searching for a job in the first place? Usually, I would say over 80% of the time, it's because something negative has happened. They got laid off, they hate their boss, toxic culture, they feel underpaid, they feel undervalued, numerous things, could be all the things. And so they're in such a negative situation that what they do is slap together a resume and go and apply to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of jobs. Okay. Then they hardly hear back from any of them. So now they're dejected already. They started from a place of reaction and then they get dejected, already off to a bad start. Then they finally get 1, maybe 2 interviews, bomb those. Why? Because they didn't have any practice. So then 2, they finally get a little bit more interviews and they bomb those, and they finally get some job offer, a job offer. Now, because they have no other options out there, they end up accepting that job offer, right? And now they're in a situation that's probably not meaningful to them, that's not helpful to them. And a year later, 2 years later, they find themselves in the same boat. What do? They repeat the same cycle. And so we're going to break that cycle. I don't want you spending your time in the job search, just sitting there and applying to job after job after job after job. The new way is the one I'm about to show you. Okay, we're not going to sit there and just throw together a garbage resume, and we're not going to sit there and apply to hundreds and hundreds of jobs. Here's the system. So the first thing, we call this in our program, is first identifying your career nirvana. The second thing is, once we know where you ultimately want to go, we're going to reverse engineer the path, which I'll show you, and figure out what's the right next step. Then once we know that step, we're going to help you write a very keyword optimized resume. And I have a ton of examples I'm going to walk you through here. And then we're going to start networking in a way that's not slimy. And even an introvert can do this. And then we're going to teach you how to interview really well. And then once you interview well enough, you're going to start landing offers, and I'm going to teach you how to negotiate those offers. Okay. And so just remember, going back to part 1, this system, your job search should never start with your resume. It starts with identifying where you want to be in the long term. So I'm going to give you an example. I know some of you are based internationally, so just bear with me. But for those of you who are in the States, in this example, let's presume for 1 second that all of you live in Los Angeles. Okay. And I tell you, I say, Omar or Aaron, I want you to drive from LA to New York, and you cannot use any GPS device that you want to use. So you can't use your phone, you can't use a map, you can't have somebody in the car with you. And you can't, and let's assume for some strange reason, you also have to listen to me. Okay. I know that you're smart enough to figure out that, okay, from LA, if I just drive northeast long enough, at some point I'll make it to New York, right? You all agree? What we don't know is, how long is that journey going to take you? How many times will you get lost? How many times will you get detoured? How many times will you stop at places you don't want to stop at? We don't know that. What we do know is at some point you'll eventually make it to New York. Now, what we also don't know is where in New York will you end up? Could be Buffalo, like who the heck wants to be in Buffalo? Or it could be a very dangerous part of the city and you don't want to be there either. But because it took you so long to get there, you will likely want to just get out of your car, check into a hotel or an Airbnb or whatever, and chill out for a minute, right? Now, instead, if I said, I want you to drive from LA to the M&M store in downtown Manhattan, and this time you can use any GPS device you want, well, I know exactly what you're going to do now, right? You're going to take your phone and you're going to plug it into Google Maps or whatever. And what does it do? It gives you the fastest, most effective route to the M&M store. Now, you're not going to be as frustrated. You might not even be frustrated at all about how long the journey takes you because you know that the path you're taking is the fastest path possible. And you know every turn you should make. More importantly, you know what turns you should not make. And the best part is at the end of it, you get M&Ms, right? So think about how that relates to most people, or even in your case, some of you in here, about your careers. How many times have you stayed at a company for far too long? How many times did you take a job offer at a company you shouldn't even have been at? Right? How many times did you go from this company to this company to this company? Why is that happen? It's because you didn't know what your M&M store was. So for the first thing we want to do is what's called, it's an exercise called career mapping. This is something I would encourage all of you to do within the next few days. Take 30 minutes to 1 hour and start figuring out and like romanticize a little bit about where do you ultimately want to see your career? What position do you want to be in? What type of industry do you want to be in? Obviously, it might be climate, it might not be a few years from now, right? What's your title? What kind of company? What kind of industry? What are you focusing on? What kind, are you doing product? Are you doing engineering? Are you doing design? Are you doing AI? What is it, right? And then you want to go onto LinkedIn and look at the people who are in that role today. Okay, this is literally an exercise our clients do. They will go and look at directors of product, head of product, CFOs, whatever their goal is in 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, whatever it is, what's your goal? Go and look at people who are doing that today. And then study how they got there. If you look at 15 profiles of people who are doing the thing you ultimately want to be doing, usually what you will find is a throughput, enough consistency that, hey, these people all did the same things over and over and over again. They took this type of title, then went to this type of title. There's usually a lot of consistency and a lot of parity between these profiles, right? So after you study 15, 20 different profiles of people who are doing the thing you want to be doing, you will know immediately what's the right next thing you should be doing because of that. Also, there's a really strong framework that we use with some of our clients, and I'm going to give you the simplistic version of it. It's called small fish, big ocean versus big fish, small pond. Okay, it's not in this slide, so I'm sorry. Typically, when you're earlier in your career, so if there are people on this webinar that are earlier in their careers, it's a lot more advantageous to go and be the small fish in a big company, right? Like the small fish in a big ocean. Go and work for a bigger company. Try to work for an enterprise-sized company, a company that has thousands of employees, whatever. Why? For multiple reasons. When you go to a bigger company, especially earlier in your career, they're going to pay you to get really good at one thing, or maybe two things if there's enough overlap, like product or design or engineering or marketing or SEO or whatever the thing is, right? You get paid really well. So you like start getting that skill set becomes really strong, and you develop it. And the more you develop your skill set, the more opportunities will come your way, right? But the second benefit of working at a bigger company is your alumni network grows huge too. The people that once worked there with you, the people that once worked there that you didn't even know, there's a lot of people that you can start connecting with down the line that could potentially help you. See, if you are earlier in your career, and I see this a lot because we've had many clients experience this. If you're earlier in your career and you start off and you go to a startup, especially like a very early stage startup, they're going to have you wear multiple hats. And while that sounds sexy, like, oh, I get to do all these different things, you ultimately don't end up becoming good at any one thing. And then if and when you get laid off, or if and when you want to look at some point and keep growing, you're going to feel like, damn, I've done so many things. I don't know which one I'm good at. I don't know which one I'm marketable in. And companies will have that perception of you too. So I always recommend when you're earlier, try to go to as big as of a company as you possibly can, right? Be the big fish. I'm sorry, the small fish in the big ocean. When you're a little bit later in your career and you want to start, you've taken the time to like capitalize on everything you've just learned and experienced, and you want to move into leadership, go and be the big fish in a smaller ocean or a small pond, right? At that point, I like working at companies that are smaller, or venture-backed startups, or high growth companies that are still stable. Why? Because now you get everything. You get to reap the rewards. You get the leadership title. You get the pay. You get the bonus. You get the equity. You get to lead big teams. And then you get to focus on being strategic. And remind me later if those of you who care to know, but there's another really strong framework. So if we have time for it, I'll teach it to you at the end, called the career progression life cycle. And it goes hand in hand with this one. But anyway, I wanted you guys to think about that. So the step number one is focus on mapping out your career by studying the profiles of the people who've already done it. No need to recreate the wheel. Success leaves clues. See what other people have done. Okay. The second step is, once you know the job that you're going after, then is the only time you should be writing your resume. And here's a logical reason for why we wait until we know which job we're targeting. As I told you before, when most people start their job search process, it comes from a place of reaction and negativity. So what do? They slap together a resume, and on that resume, they just kind of list out everything they've ever done. So logically, if all you're talking about are the things you've ever done, how can you ever attract something new? You will only keep attracting the thing that you're talking about, right? If you think of what is a resume or a LinkedIn profile in the first place, at its core, it is basically an advertisement. It's a digital advertisement of your skills, right? Well, then what makes good advertising? Copywriting, like the thing you're saying in there. And then what makes good copywriting? It's knowing your target audience. And then once you know your target audience and you write that copy, it needs to include two things. The first thing is data. Why? Because data moves the mind. And the second thing is stories. Why? Because stories move the heart. So data is quantifiable data, like the things you've accomplished, the things you've learned. Did you help a company save money or improve inefficiencies, etc.? Right? But you can't know how to write your resume unless you know who your target audience is. That's effective advertising. And the only way you know who your target audience is by studying the job descriptions of that next role you're going after. If you don't know what the next role is, then like I said, you're just kind of writing this resume aimlessly. And then what happens is your job search goes around like this. And so does your career. So then what are the components of a really well-written resume? One is a summary. Two, responsibilities that reflect the roles you're going after. And three, quantifiable accomplishments. So here is a really good example of a summary. It just goes straight into, like, you will see there's no fluff in here, you guys. What do I mean by fluff? Saying stuff like fast learner, dynamic this, fast-paced environment, ninja, rock star. Those are like fluffy things that you can't measure those things. How do you measure that you're a ninja? Right? No, so don't put those things. Don't put your fast-paced learner. You can't measure that. But when you have a summary that goes straight into the thing, look, I have 6 years of experience in marketing and entertainment and ad agencies. I've helped companies do this. Then I have my skills, my tools, my interests. You don't have to have an interest, by the way. But here are my tools. Here's my thing. Why do we want to have these keywords on here? Because recruiters search for resumes based on keywords. Resumes rank on job boards based on keywords. The more keywords your resume has, the higher your resume ranks, just like a job board. I'm just like a website. If you go on to Google, they say the best place to go and hide a dead body is on page 2 of Google because no one goes there, right? When's the last time you looked on page 2? The websites you see on page 1 of Google, they're very SEO, right? Like search engine optimized, but the resume works the same way. So the way you know what keywords to include is by studying the job descriptions. The way you know what job descriptions to study is by doing the career mapping exercise, right? So there's a logical flow to this. So here's an example of a really well-written summary. Here's another one. And it's okay if you don't have as much experience as some of these people. You don't have to. It just has to know, you have to say who you've helped, what kind of problems have you either solved or learned to solve, and then what was the impact that you've made. And even if you don't have that much impact, like I said, it's okay. If you're early in your career, no one's going to expect you to have made tons and tons of impact. But again, who you've helped, problems you've solved, and impact. In the chat, let me know if this is making sense, you guys. Okay. So remember, the key is to write your summary as if you're talking directly to a leader, a manager. Okay. If you are able to address that you know how to solve their pain points to some degree based on what you've done in the past or based on what you've learned in school or whatever stage you're in, then you come across as a solution to the problem they're trying to solve versus someone looking for some job. Why is it important to come across as the solution to the problem a company is trying to solve? Is because if that's how they think of you, their perceived value before they ever get on a call with you is already so high. And we want that, right? We want that. So these are some summaries of examples of summaries, right? And again, you guys will get access to these slides, so you can use these. The second element is responsibilities. Few things to know. You don't need to include more than 5 bullets for your responsibilities. And where do you find these responsibilities? This is why you're studying the job descriptions. You know, like in a job description, they'll say your responsibilities. If you've done those things, or you can speak to those things, or you have transferable experience that speaks to those responsibilities, that's your indicator that those responsibilities need to go onto your resume. Because again, that's how recruiters are searching for it. Okay. Yeah. Here are some examples of responsibilities. This is from one of my clients' resumes, a very high converting resume, by the way. Where did she get these? From the job description she was looking at. She didn't need to recreate the wheel. The final most important element to your resume is listing out some quantifiable achievements. What's an achievement? It's literally the impact of the work that you did. Did you make things easier for people? Did you, again, improve some sort of inefficiency? Did you create some sort of project document that improved the time it took for completing a project? Did you work on a product that generated X amount in revenue or X amount in monthly active users? Whatever the thing is, that needs to go on there. And hiring managers, just so you know, care way more about that than what you did. They care about what was the impact of your work more so than the work. So here's some examples of good accomplishments. And accomplishments, just FYI, should go right underneath your responsibilities. So if you've ever been promoted, that's a good one. Did you mentor people at your job? That's another good one. Here's just a few, okay? And again, don't worry if you don't have too many. So if you want to, what's a good formula to use when you're thinking about how to write your accomplishments is what you did, what was the outcome, and how you did it. What you did, what was the outcome, and how you did it. Okay. Now, if you ever are wondering, well, how do I know if my resume is keyword optimized enough? then use this tool. It's free. It's called jobscan.co. And what it allows you to do is it'll just, you'll paste your job description on one side, and then you'll upload your resume on the other side. And then it gives you a match rate. Now, I've studied this thing for many, many, many years. Here's a just FYI for all of you. Jobscan.co is a company, and it's trying to make money. So they will always give you a lower score and make you think you need to buy some of their products and services. Don't fall for it. If you get a 65 or even a 60% or higher, your resume is pretty well optimized. I have never seen somebody get a 95% optimized score on this thing. If you do, send it to me. That's awesome. But don't fall for their tricks. Don't fall for their services. You don't need it. Just use the tool for the tool itself. Okay. All right. When that happens, when you have a well-optimized resume, this is what you will see. 2 Facebook calls with recruiters. I forgot. Apple called me this morning. They all found his resume. The more optimized your resume, the more easier it is for people to find you. Okay, one other trick. Once you get your resume created, you're going to publish it on job boards. Look at job boards specific to climate, but make sure you're also putting your resume on all the other really well-established job boards. A few of them include Built-in, Well-Found, heck, ZipRecruiter, Indeed, it doesn't matter. Okay, make sure it goes on. And if you want, I can give you our entire list of that. I'll find it in a second, put it in here, or when it's done. But anyway, here's something you all should know. This is a little industry secret. If any of you have ever bought a home and you go on to like Redfin, or if you go on to Zillow, okay, there's a little thing in there that tells you how long that home has been listed on the market. Right? Have any of you seen that? Like this has been on the market for 67 days. This has been on the market for like 127 days. It'll tell you that. Okay, so when you see something like that, you have a negative perception, right? Oh, this home's been on the market for like 6 months. Why? Did someone die in there? Well, when a recruiter sees your resume on a job board, it tells them the same exact thing. How long has your resume been on the job board? And if they see it on there for more than like 90 days, 100 and something days, 60 something days, they'll also start formulating an opinion that's not fair, but they'll do it. Right? So how do we change that? If you go into the job boards where your resume is posted every single week, I kid you not, this will work 100% of the time. If you go into your resume where the job boards where your resume is posted every single Sunday, and just change one thing about your resume, like change the zip code or remove a period or add a comma, right? If you change one thing, that will then on the job board itself, it'll just say when your resume was last updated. See this? Updated October 10th, updated October 6th, updated October 16th. Now it removes the aging mechanism. So a recruiter has no idea when you first posted your resume or not. It's such a simple, it's like, I don't know why, like nobody's figured this out yet. But our clients do this every Sunday. They just know to go into the job boards every single week and change a freaking zip code. And so if your zip code is for Los Angeles, think of how many zip codes there are in Los Angeles. You could literally just change one out every single week. Okay. Okay, so that was the resume. I'm sorry this is taking long. I told you there was a ton of tactical information in here. So your next action items are study 15 to 20 job descriptions of the role you're looking for. Make sure you know what their responsibilities are, and then build your resume using the ingredients I gave you. And then lastly, if you need to, if you're worried about is it keyword optimized, go to jobscan.co and just figure out your optimization rating, okay? Helpful so far? Too much information, too little information, just right? Give me a heat check, you guys. Helpful? Okay, thank you. It is a ton of information. I told you, I'm sorry about that. I'd rather you leave this thing feeling like it was worth the investment of the time. Okay, now comes to me the probably the most important part of your job search. Now, remember, what did I say in the beginning of this? Our clients are getting job offers on average between 67 to like 75 days, right? Give or take. And they're doing it without applying to hundreds and hundreds of jobs. So how are they doing it without applying? Oh, can you please include more specific stuff for a senior level? I mean, a lot of this is for senior, and especially this next part. Okay. So how are these people finding jobs without spending hours applying online? It's through a process called intentional networking. Okay. I might show you one thing that I'm not technically allowed to show you, but I might show you anyway. Okay. So what does this mean? It means reach out directly to the recruiters and the hiring managers that work at the companies you want to work at, where you're seeing openings. It means reach out to people who once worked at the companies that you worked at. So even if you don't know somebody, dude, we have somebody in our program who is interviewing with 11 different companies because he worked at Salesforce for 8 years. So during that time, there were so many people he worked with, but all he did was a simple search on LinkedIn and looked at people in customer success and in marketing that once worked at Salesforce. Even if he didn't know them, he's reaching out to them, especially if they're working at a company where he sees an opening he's a good fit for, right? So you can reach out to people who work at the companies that you once knew or didn't know. You could reach out to alumni that went to the same college or boot camp or at school at some point that you did. You could reach out to recruiters and hiring managers. You could join user groups. There's a lot, but you want to be spending time reaching out to people instead of applying to jobs. And here, most people, when they reach out to someone, what they'll say is like, hey, Natalie, I saw that you're hiring for a senior product manager or a VP of product. I think I'm a good fit. I'd love to chat. Like, that gets you nowhere. Because what you're saying to this very important person or this person that's likely busy is, hey, go and do the homework. Go and figure out how I'm a good fit for you and then reach out to me. No executive in their right mind is going to do that. Okay. So you have to add value when you reach out to them. Here is one of the exact scripts that someone is using in our program right now to help them just land a ton of interviews. Okay, I'm going to just pause here for a second so you guys can save it, screenshot it, whatever. When you reach out to someone, tell them how you can help them solve their problem. Remember, we want to always come across as a solution to the problem a company is trying to solve. Okay. Rule of thumb, reach out to 5 hiring managers and 5 recruiters per company. It's a never-ending process, you guys. You're building this network. Also, remember how I said there's something I shouldn't show you, but I want to show you? Can I stop this and actually show it to you? You guys, would that be okay? Take a quick detour. Yeah. Okay. So another really cool thing you can say to somebody. So remember that career mapping exercise that I told you to do? Look at people who are already doing what you want to do. They're likely like 10 years ahead of you. So one thing you could reach out to them and say, which nobody says, I promise you this, except our clients, which is, hey, you're exactly where I want to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now. What advice would you give to yourself 5 years ago today? Okay. Now, let me show you this really, really cool thing. What I'm about to show you is something where we chat with just our clients, okay? But who cares? It's kind of private, but I'm not going to reveal anything crazy. Let me share my screen. So this is a tool we use called Boxer that we chat one-on-one with our clients. Okay. So look at this is our client. That's him. He sent this to somebody at Google. Can you guys see this message? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we can.
So, hi, you are where I want to be 5 years from now. Is there anything you wish? So then he said, yeah, And so then Kayer's question naturally is like, well, okay, he gave me the advice. How do I turn this into a conversation? I want to talk to him because there's jobs at Google I think I'm a good fit for. So then Katie, who's she's like my partner in crime here. She said, well, now respond with this. Bada bing, bada boom. Okay. Then also make sure you're including some dates and times you can speak. Okay. Here's another thing. He asked another guy named Dustin, like, you are where I want to be, blah, blah, blah. The guy responded. And then she said, respond with this. Screenshot this if you want. I don't care. And then look at what Julio said back. And I'm telling you guys, this happens like every day, every single day. So going back to this, sorry, that was the detour. I apologize. Okay, so going back to this, remember, this is like, what's the coolest part about this is a network that you're going to build that you can literally nurture for the rest of your life. Okay. And you want to, like, as you're making these contacts, stay in touch with them. Check in with them. Also provide them with updates on how things are going with you after you've connected with them. We had a client named Wesley who like went to one of these colleges where you can choose your own major, which I'll never understand. And he studied like something like alien, whatever. And anyway, the first job he got was, he applied this process where he reached out to a bunch of people. And the first job he got was a facilities coordinator at Snapchat. Okay. He decides he wants to leave Snapchat. This was his progression within Snapchat during all the moves he made within 2 years. You could reach out to Wesley. I love him to death. He's like, I call him my teddy bear client. Then he leaves Snapchat. He gets a job at Atrium. How did he get this job so quickly? November to November. All he did was he started going back and reaching out to all the people that he once connected with during the outreach process. The people that were speaking to him, he was asking people for advice. He was checking in, and then all he did was he gave them a follow-up. Hey, we haven't talked in a while. Would love to learn what's going on with you. Also, I'd love to share with you what I'm up to and what I'm looking for. And then that led to conversations. And then we have a rule in our program where we always prep with each of our clients before they ever go on any sort of conversation or every interview. So we would prep, and then he landed this. Now, he got laid off right when COVID happened, April of 2020. And within 28 days, he found this next job. How? And look, 125, literally doubled. How? He went right back to the network he had been nurturing all these years using these scripts, like the scripts I just showed you, finding people here, user groups, etc. Okay. So it's a cool thing. Here's another, here, you want to see something like, this is a client who he's in finance and he works at Chipotle. Look at what he said. I decided to connect with the Qdoba CFO since they had an opening that was interesting. And within minutes, he replied and wants to chat with me. Here's what he said. His note was, I hope my note finds you safe and well. I was doing some research on the next steps in my career. I came across your profile. How have you been able to navigate your career as it's so inspiring? I'd be grateful to add you. Look at this. This CFO responds back with, happy to connect. Thanks for, yeah, I'd love to have a proper introduction. Now, remember, set expectations. Not everyone that you reach out to is going to get back to you. Right now, our clients using these scripts that I'm sharing with you are averaging about a 38 to 43% conversion rate. So that still means 60% to 70% of the people that they're reaching out to are not connecting back with them. Who cares, right? We only need a few. Technically, only need one right one. Do you think this is powerful or not? Because I really do. I am like behind this. I would rather do this all day long than apply to jobs all day long. Can you guys see how this would help? Thank God. Okay. I know I don't want you guys spending hours and hours applying to jobs. Seriously. Okay. Here's just a few more responses. This guy is in operations. This girl is an engineer, front-end engineer. This guy's in product. This guy's in India. Okay. And it works. Based in Mumbai. The same stuff works. She said, I got responses back from Pinterest, Squarespace, Willow Tree. I don't know what the heck that is. Twillo, whatever. Same thing here. Look at this vice president he reached out to said, thank you for your bold approach. I don't know. I think it's so cool. And I'll give you one example. This guy has the same name as me, okay? He was a client of mine. He connected, he wanted to work in gaming. This is a really, really powerful story. He wanted to work in gaming. So he reached out to a VP of like analytics, I think his background was, at some gaming company. She decides to hop on a call with him. She told him on that call, I don't have any positions here for you. She literally said, but tell me what some of the other companies you might be interested in, or tell me the type of people you want to talk to. He told her. She gave him two names of two people who one worked at Hilton and the other one worked at Amazon. So she, out of her, like the, like just because she had a big heart, connected him with this. Again, this doesn't always happen, but she connects him with these two people she knows. He talks to both. The person from Amazon turns into nothing, not a big deal. The person who worked at Hilton, he, when they talked, he said, the position I have for you here is not going to be a good fit. But that guy left Hilton and went to CVS. And when he went to CVS, he thought of this guy, Gaurav. And so when my client said, hey, I got a job offer, increased everything by 100K, how did that happen? He said, remember that person we talked to on LinkedIn, sent her a Starbucks gift card. She introduced me to one of her contacts. He and I had an exploratory call, got a new role at CVS, 6-7 rounds later, boom, 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 boom. I'm telling you, we see this literally day in, day out. It's worth doing this. Remember, worst case scenario, I'd rather do this than apply to jobs. Okay. Action items here. You want to connect with 5 hiring managers for every company you consider applying to. Join 3 user groups in the space that you're interested in. You can find these user groups on Slack. Literally just Google like top climate jobs Slack groups. Find them on LinkedIn user groups. Reconnect with former friends, colleagues, acquaintances. And then remember, when you send a message to them, you always want to add something of value. And I am going to show you one other thing because I'm going to give you a shortcut. This is something our clients do all day long, okay? Give me one second. I'm going to show you something even cooler that you can do. So, where is this? Where's my LinkedIn? Okay, I presume all of you have LinkedIn. When you go here, let's just, I'm going to assume randomly that you're looking for a customer success job or you're looking for a product job. I don't care, okay? All you're going to do in here is type in if you're in customer success or whatever your skill set is, type in customer success and write it the way I'm telling you. You have to capitalize the word and. This is called a Boolean search string. Who cares about the technical terms, but that's what it's called. So, and then hiring, okay? Watch this. Where is it? Where is it? Look at all these people. Now you click on hiring top customer success professionals. Hiring for US-based customer success managers and product managers. Hiring. Where else? And then that's just page 1, right? You can go to page 2. If you typed in product and hiring, like let's say you're going after product manager jobs. Maybe you don't have to capitalize it. Maybe I don't know everything I'm talking about. Doesn't matter. Okay. Hiring for product and technical product managers. Director hiring. Hiring at Paylocity for product and tech. We're hiring. We're hiring. So like that little strategy alone is super, super cool because those people are telling you, they're literally inviting you to go and reach out to them. And so then if you reach out to them and say, hey, I saw the job that you're hiring for, then use the script that I shared with you, that can generate a lot of phone calls as well. So going back to this, when we say your action items, you can do that same action item that I just shared with you guys, okay? Someone's saying, find it tough to balance between these reach outs, chats versus applications. Yes, that's what I'm saying. Applications should be prioritized last. Where's the return on investment? The return on investment is here. Applying to jobs yields a 2% or worse return on investment, right? Response rate. So if you apply to 100 jobs and you get back 2 people that reach out to you, I would rather reach out to 100 people and have 30% get back to me. Heck, if you guys are even on the worst case of this and only 20% get back to you, you're still starting a conversation with 20 different people that work at the companies you want to work at to talk about a job that you know you would crush if you got it. Does that help, Armin? Okay, let's go on. Okay, almost done, you guys. Now we're going to go to interviewing. So remember, we've targeted your M&M store. We know what your next steps are. We now have written a really well-written resume and LinkedIn profile. Now we're doing outreach. What happens is this will generate interviews and phone calls, right? So then you want to make sure that you're applying a very strategic interviewing strategy. You don't want to be what's called transactional. What is transactional? You go into an interview, they ask you a question, you answer. They ask you a question, you answer. They ask you a question. And so that's a very transactional experience for the hiring manager or for the people you're meeting with, right? There's nothing that's really memorable about that. It's almost like if you went on a date, and interviewing to some degree is kind of like dating. If you went on a date with somebody and you had to ask them all the questions and they answered your questions, but then didn't ask you anything back, you would probably leave that date and like, I don't know, I really like this person, right? Because it was kind of boring. You were doing everything. So in an interview, you want to make it consultative. So you want to flip it and ask them questions about them. And you want to get them to open up as much about why they need this person as much as you can. That's called consultative interviewing, right? Like when if you think about like consulting firms like Deloitte, Accenture, McKinsey, Bain, why can they get away with charging gazillions of dollars to companies like Disney to work on a change transformation project or a whatever? It's not like they don't just go to Disney and say, hey, we want to help you with this thing. It's all the way, by the way, it's going to cost you $1 billion. No, what do? They first go to Disney and they'll say, hey, it looks like you're trying to implement this mobile application across all of your water parks and resorts. We'd love to talk to you to see a little bit more about what you're looking for, what you need, what's your timeline, what do you have in place now, what don't you have in place, whatever, right? They're fact finding. So they meet with Disney. Disney tells them about all of their pain points, like, oh my gosh, we don't have enough business analysts. We could use way more engineers. Our timeline is 9 months. Our budget is X amount of dollars. If we go over that budget, it's really going to hurt us. So Deloitte is now keeping track of all of that. So then they go back and they say, okay, great. Let us go back and see if we can help you. Now they know they can help you, by the way. They know they can help Disney. So then they come back and say, hey, Disney, we actually think we can help. We can deploy 50 engineers. We could do this for you. And we can get it done in actually a little bit of a shorter time frame than what you're projecting. Would that help? They'd be like, yeah. They'd be like, okay, by the way, it cost $1 gazillion. And Disney's like, cool, here's $1 gazillion. That was a very consultative approach that Deloitte took. And you want to do the same thing with interviewing, okay? So like, remember to get them to extract as much about their pain points as you possibly can. And then position yourself as a solution to those pain points. Okay, so the first question you always want to ask in an interview, second the Zoom thing starts, I would say, Natalie, thank you so much for making the time to meet with me today. I'm actually really excited to speak with you about this role. Before we get started, would it be okay if I asked you, what was it about my background that made you want to meet with me today? Natalie will say yes. I mean, in the history of history, they will say yes. They always say it. So now she'll say, I really like the fact that you did this, or I want to learn more about this, or blah, 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 blah. Now I have the answers to the test. I know what is relevant to Natalie, and most importantly, I know what is irrelevant to Natalie. So I'm going to only focus on that which is relevant to her. This is like one of the most powerful questions you can ask. Look at this. This actually came in not too long ago. Today's call went really well. Cool. My entire game plan was something else, and I switched it up on the spot after she basically spoon-fed me the answer. Not only that, but she also told me what she wants to talk about tomorrow. It's like, anyway, ask this first question, okay? Once you start the interview, you kind of have to have the little bit of an audacity to ask that. The other things you can ask during an interview. So like, remember, they're going to ask you behavioral questions, situational questions, technical questions. That's great. But also you want to make sure you're asking them questions, again, to get them to open up about their pain points. What are you hoping for this person to accomplish within the first 60 days to a year? Why is this position open in the first place? How are you measuring success in this role? Right? What are some of the things that are deprioritized, but you wish you could prioritize if you had enough bandwidth? These are pain point questions. So now, if they tell you the things that are important to them and you know you've done those things or have experience in some way, shape, or form that pertain to those things, you can say, by the way, that's interesting that you say that. When I was at XYZ company, we worked on things very similar to that. Here's how we solved them. And then you would go and give a star situation. I'm not going to get into star because that could take a whole another thing. But then you would give that. So the beginning of the interview, you're asking that question. The middle of the interview, you're being very consultative. They're asking you questions, you're asking them questions. Okay. You're answering in the form of a star format. Now at the end, there's two questions you always want to ask at the end. The second to last question is, would it be okay if I quickly recapped what I think you're looking for in this role? This is a very strong, like, psychological sales technique. So when they say yes, because they'll always say yes, you're not going to regurgitate the job description. Instead, you're going to regurgitate their pain points. So what you're looking for somebody to come in and help you with are XYZ. Your biggest pain point right now is blah, 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 right? If you had more time, you would also work on this, this, this. Is that right? They'll say, yeah. If you miss something, they'll tell you too. But it's also just really cool for the person that you just spent all this time talking to hear back all the things they just said. It makes them feel like they've been heard, and you can demonstrate active listening. But when you regurgitate their pain points, it makes them feel like even more in need, that you might be the right fit. Then the last question you ask is, you could say, thank you again for taking the time to meet with me, blah, blah, blah. And this takes a little bit of guts, but you have to ask it. Was there anything about my background that concerns you about my ability to step into this role and be effective? Because I'd love to clarify or confirm your concerns. Okay. Why do we want to ask this? Because you don't want to leave this interview with them having a potential concern about you that's invalid. Also, how many times have any of you gone on an interview and then at night you've been like, oh, I should have said this, or I wonder if they're thinking about that. I want you to sleep well at night, knowing you did the best you possibly could and you left it all on the table. That's why we asked this question. Now, what happens if they give you a invalid, like an invalid concern, right? So let's say this is, I always use this example. So let's say they say, Angela, our only concern is you don't know how to bake a cake. Okay. And let's say that concern is true, it's valid. Like, you don't know actually how to bake a cake. Most people will try to BS their way through it. They'll say, oh, no, but I can, or whatever. Or they'll try to say, no, I can learn it so fast, or whatever. Don't BS your way. We use a strategy called absorbing versus deflecting. Okay, this is like a psychological hack. So what that means is you would say, you know what? You're absolutely right. I actually don't have any experience baking a cake. But however, when I was at my last company, one of the things I was responsible for was baking a cupcake too. And when I started, I had no idea how to bake a cupcake. In fact, I had probably, for the first maybe 2-3 months, I had the worst tasting cupcake in the entire company. No one would go near it. However, every single night I would go home and I would study recipes on YouTube and different recipe books or whatever. I would test those recipes. And then every week I try to sit with some of our best bakers to see how they were doing baking their cupcakes. And again, right around like the 2-3 month mark, it was still bad, but something clicked. And right around like that 3rd month. And then I had, the top 5 best selling cupcake in the entire bakery. And I would use that same resourceful approach here. I would study this, I would watch things on how to design this or whatever, right? So what you've done is you've acknowledged, you've absorbed their concern, and then you've taken them from a negative back to a positive. Now, what happens if that concern is invalid? Like you actually do know how to bake a cake, right? Or you do know how to do the thing they say you can't do. Well, you don't want to say, oh, no, no, no. You don't say, oh, no, 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 I can do it. I can learn it or whatever. I have done it. Instead, you first absorb it. You're like, you know what? That's my fault. I should have done a better job of clarifying that. I actually have some experience working, baking a cake. In fact, when I was at blah, blah, blah company. So you see what I've done? I've made it less confrontational. I've said, that's my fault. I should have done a better job of clarifying that. Disalarming, puts them at ease. Their wall doesn't need to go up, all the things. So that's how we end every interview, is by asking this last question, okay? Oh, guys, we're almost done, but tell me if you're liking this, hating this, whatever. Okay, we're getting to negotiation now. So now, ultimately, you go on enough interviews, what's going to happen? You're going to get offers, right? Okay, so I want to make sure that you understand how to negotiate a competitive offer. Let me take a sip of water because my throat's like closing in. I hope you can tell I love this stuff. I've been studying it forever and a day now. And I've been on both sides of it. There's a part of me that likes sticking it to the man, you know, because I want you to win, because I know all the little shady things HR and recruiting can do to try to keep you a little low. So if I can equip you with the stuff to get them back, it just makes me feel happy at night. My business partner, Katie's like, you shouldn't be happy about the fact that you're sticking it to the man. I'm like, I know, but I kind of am. Anyway, okay. So just remember, negotiation. Negotiation isn't just about the base salary. Okay. When you get an offer, you want to make sure you're looking at this thing very, very holistically. Like if the base is slightly lower than what you want, that's fine. As long as this opportunity allows you to gain upward mobility. Are you going to learn a ton here? Are you going to work with really cool people and leaders? Do you think you'll secure some good mentors? Do you like the culture? Do you like the work-life balance? Do you like the perks? Do you like the benefits? Do they give you sign-on stock options? Right? If there's all these other things, there's elements of the thing that's going to make you happy, then go for that. Never, never, ever just chase the salary, okay? I think you guys all know that, and you've probably heard that, but it's as true as ever. You want to ultimately work in a place that's going to just day in, day out make you happy. And an extra 15, 10K, even 20K, it's not going to change your day-to-day life. But having a great leader will. Having a great culture will. Working on things that intellectually stimulate you will. Getting sign-on will, right? There's all these other things that can make you happy, just as happy. And it's never about you winning and them losing, even though I just said what I said, which is I want you to stick it to the man. But when you get an offer and it's a little bit lower, don't think that they're trying to you don't think I want them to lose. Think like I want to find a win-win. And I'm going to show you exactly how we do that in a second. Okay. Also, when it comes time to negotiating, just FYI, like usually when you start the process, the recruiter that you speak to or a hiring manager that you speak to, depending on what strategy you use, they will say, what's your salary expectation? And you never quote a salary based on the salary you're making today or the salary you once made, even if you're laid off. Okay. You always want to quote based on what is your value in the open market. So you have to do some research. Companies like websites like PayScale, Glassdoor, salary.com, LinkedIn Insights, they all have really good data around what your skill set is being paid at company sizes that are the same as yours in the same industry for the same skill set, etc. So make sure before you ever speak to a recruiter or hiring manager, because you're going to get asked this question, you know what your skill set is being paid in the open market. And you have to believe you can get it. Just because you've never made it in the past, that doesn't mean you can't make it in the future. So remember to do your homework. MySalaryScale.com, Glassdoor, PayScale. These are all good websites to do your research. Okay. Now, using the data that you gather from the research, this is how you'd respond. Yes, and whoever said a recruiter should never ask what you're making today. If they do, it's usually illegal in most states. Okay. So when someone says, well, what's your salary expectations? You would say this. This is exactly what our clients say. And then these ranges, X and Y, the X should be slightly higher than their low end, right? Like, so let's say they're paying 150 or 200K, your X would be 210, 220. And if their Y is 250, your Y would be 255. Okay. The X should be higher than its lowest point, and the Y should be 35% higher than the X. Just FYI, that's your basic math. Now, there's a trick. There's a philosophy here called the Chinese menu trick, okay? This philosophy states that when you go to a restaurant, the waiter hands you a menu. You believe that you have all of this free will. You can pick and choose what you want, right? But really, what you're doing is you are picking from the options they gave you in the first place, right? So how much free will do you really have? So it's the same thing when we teach our clients to negotiate. We want the employer to think that the ball is in their court, that they can pick and choose what they give you. But really, you're going to give, like, let's say they offer you 200, okay? 200K. You're not going to just say, no, I don't want 200K, I want 220. You're going to come back with several options and then let them think the ball is in their court, when in reality, they're going to pick something that you would be happy with in the first place. So what does that look like? So here, you give them a couple options, okay? Look at this. This is a real life example. I'm gonna share you something in a second too. Look, this guy got a job at TikTok, just FYI. 140K salary, 25% average bonus, no cap, 425 RSUs, 20K total comp was this. Total comp was 190, 15K is a PTO, okay? So then we came back with this. Guys, this template works. I wrote this for him because I've been on the inside. So remember, look at, he's giving them options here. Instead of this is what they offered, he came back and said, I'd like to respectfully ask. Remember, you're going to be respectful here, obviously. If you could do 165 with everything else remaining the same, or go a little bit lower, but then improve the bonus, keep the stock the same, or go even a little bit lower than that, and then improve the bonus even more and the stock even more. This was his template. And they came back with this. They literally said, you pick. We'll either do this one or this one. Isn't that crazy? And check this out. So this was the script. Well, never mind. I'll show you later if it matters. I can't take too many more detours. Here was another client. This was $155,000 increase after he negotiated. I was able to convert a 190K base and a 190K in stocks to 220K base and 300K in stocks. I used the framework of options. I asked for more, but we settled on the above number. Now they came back and they probably feel like, oh, okay, well, we can pick and choose what he gets based on the options he gave him. And yet every option he gave him was one he would be happy with in the first place. Here's just a few more examples of people who've done the thing. Okay, they get crazy, crazy examples. And they all use the same script. The script is tried and, whatever, proven. Use it all day long. I know I've ran out of time, but I want to end with this last story. This was a client of ours who, like 5 years prior to working with us, she was on welfare and she had 3 kids and she was making $15 an hour. And like, she was getting rejected. She had, you know, the marriage she was in ended and she had taken all this time off because her husband told her not to work, whatever. I'm not going to get into like how I feel about that, but she had all this gap on her resume. And so companies were obviously like discriminating a little bit, whether they told her or not. And this is why I talk about, like, I like the little, like, I'm sticking it back to them because I want you to win, right? Like, just because you have gap on your resume doesn't mean you're no longer qualified, right? And you know, she came into our program, and like I said, our program's for life. Once you're in, you're in. And like, she ultimately, after 5 years of working with us, she had one job she got, and then she got another job. She got a $200,000 job. She went from $15 an hour to $200K in 5 years. So like, to me, I can't see a world where none of this works so long as you just put it into place, have some belief. Remember, it all goes back to belief, strategy, and executing the strategy the right way. Okay. I think that's it, you guys. So this was the thing. Listen, I've done many of these in the past. And even though I know this is a lot of information, so sometimes people feel like this after they've heard my thing. Yes, we help with mock tech interviews, but after our presentation, some people feel like this, like, damn, this is a lot. How am I going to do all of this on my own? If you feel like that, I don't know if I told Natalie this morning. So we only work with 10 people at a time in our program. We don't take everyone and their mom because we wouldn't be able to help them. We literally like to handhold everybody through the process. That's why, like, some people are not impressed by the fact that we've only helped 700 people. But to me, I am, because like, we helped each and every single one of them. And so we only take 10 at a time. That's why our numbers are so low. But we opened up 3 spots only for people who are in this webinar. So if you guys feel like, hey, I would like to consider coaching, whatever, we did open up 3 spots. And if you want to book, I'll put, I know this is not a link, I'll link this thing in the chat, and you guys can book a call. You have to apply. We will only accept the people we know we can help. If we feel like we can't help you, we'll send you some free resources, maybe redirect you to some other competitors of ours. We don't care by doing that. And but yeah, so if you feel like this was a lot of info and you want some coaching, you can always sign up and apply to work with us. And then I'll also drop this because I put together a really free document. Again, this is not going to be at any cost to you, and it walks through these steps as well. Okay. This is one of my favorite quotes. I love this quote a ton. I think it applies very much to what we've talked about today. So I want you guys to really feel empowered, and I want you to take these actions, you know, apply these actions and crush it. So thank you. We'll open it up. I know we're over time, but I'm happy to stay on for a few more minutes and just kind of open it up to some questions. And I'll drop the links here in a second. Okay. Let me stop. How do I stop sharing?
In the bottom, you click the little
here we go.
green share screen. That was incredible. I learned so much. So I'm sure everyone else did. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So as was mentioned, if you have to drop, go ahead, but we can stay on a little bit longer for some Q&A. I know there's about like 14 or so questions, so feel free to stay. If not, I'll be sending a follow-up email this evening with a link to this recording, the slides, and then all of the resources that we touched on. So
Yeah.
thank you again.
You're welcome.
And yeah, let's go ahead and answer some questions. Do we want to just start with the ones that are in the Q&A box?
Sure, we can do that.
Just a heads up, Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, here's the link to the Calendly if you guys want to apply to work with us. And then let me give you the link to that free guide that I talked about as well. But go ahead, sorry, Natalie.
No worries. And if you're still in here and you want to click on the Q&A box, you can up like certain questions if they apply to you, and then I will read off the ones that have the most likes first. So just a little hack. If you like a question, give it a thumbs up. But one of the questions that already has a thumb up is, what are some tips for identifying which companies to reach out to work with in case they don't have an active related job post?
So if like there's no job opening, that's a good question, and that happens a lot too. I think that you have to play within the options that you have, but you also have to dream a little bit too. So what that means is, when we're doing all of this outreach and whatever, we're obviously reaching out to hiring managers and recruiters who work at the companies that we want to work at. I mean, sorry, that have an opening. But there should also then be a list of like 20, 30 companies, or as many as you want to add, of your ideal company, right? Like, what are the companies that you just know that their culture is so cool and you would love to work there, or at least learn more about them? So then those companies, you would go and put them on your list and start reaching out to those people using that strategy that I shared with you earlier about. They said like, hey, you're where I am 5 years from now. What advice would you have? That gets the door open, because what happens is typically you'll have a conversation with someone at this company. They'll say, we don't have an opening right now, but a month from now, a week from now, that could quickly change. Someone could quit and go to another company, and an opening all of a sudden comes up. They could, get an improved budget, whatever. So I always say, have a target list of companies that you would just love to work at that have no openings, and reach out to people there.
Awesome. Makes a lot of sense. Oh, this one has 6 up likes, so it's a really popular one. Do you have any advice to leverage your past experience when transitioning to a new sector or new industry, especially for fields that are very different from the one that you were transitioning from?
Mm-hmm. It's not always. I wish, you know what? I'm gonna share one thing as I'm answering that. You have to also believe that your stories, your experiences you can't assume that those are the things that'll hold you back. Because in everything you've ever done, there's a learning lesson there. There's something that you learned. There's something that you achieved. There's some way that you helped that company do something. And so what we want to find is, what are the transferable skills that came out of that work that I did, and where can I apply those transferable skills to? Who needs those transferable skills? And like, remember this here, and I wish I was more articulate, but here's a client of ours. This is our private group community, okay? I'll just read. I want you guys to read this. I'll zoom in. This person had a 5-year hiatus. And I like what she says here, right? Like all this stuff. So anyway, I hope that kind of answers this, but you want to always find like, what's the transferable skill that came out of the thing that I did, and how did it help that company I was with? And then you have to kind of connect the dots. How would it help in this role I'm looking at that seems kind of like apples and oranges, right? So that would be my answer to that.
Makes a lot of sense. Cool. This one says, I usually never hear back from hiring managers. Would there be a template of LinkedIn messages for outreach as a job seeker?
Yeah, we have a bunch for our clients there. We may have sent a few, but like sometimes I just like to keep in mind that like some hiring managers, some recruiters will ghost you, just kind of like the crappy part about this, but some are just busy, or some are like interviewing other people. So one of the things you could follow up with, it's hard to walk through because we don't have that much time, but we have what's called a 30, 60, 90-day plan. And so all of our clients, we help them build this. So what it is basically, after you've interviewed with the company, not with the recruiter, but like after you've interviewed with the hiring manager, we have our clients put together what's called a 30, 60, 90-day plan that demonstrates, here's within the first 30 days, here's how I plan on coming up to speed. That's called the learning phase, right? So then you would bullet out the things you would do to learn and come up to speed, meeting with stakeholders, reading and catching up on documents, testing out your software, whatever the thing is. Then within the next 60 days, here's how I plan on contributing. So first it's learning, then contributing, right? Whatever, however you would contribute. And then based on the 90 days, here's how I plan on owning the thing you're hiring me to do. And so when you send this, like you would say, hey, I wanted to check in just to see how, I wanted to check in to follow up on the next steps of the interview process. Also, I took the liberty of putting together a 30, 60, 90-day plan that highlights how I would work towards the initiatives we discussed in the interview process. And like that little thing helps you stand apart more than anyone else. Now, I know it seems like a lot, but once you get the hang of it, it becomes so easy to do. And the information you're pulling comes directly from the interviews you've been on. And so like when you follow up, you always want to have something of like value to add. So it encourages them to want to respond back to you faster.
That's a great point. Ties back into the showing rather than just telling it. You touched on it.
Exactly.
Another question is, how can we convey being a lifelong learner in networking, job applications, etc.? It is important, so there must be a good way to relay this disposition to employers.
How do you show you're a lifelong learner?
Mm.
Oh, that's good. So one of the things I'll just give you a real life example. So when I was at Overstock, as Natalie mentioned, I was overseeing talent acquisition globally for that company. And so I had a team of, I think, like 25 or 30 people, most of whom were like recruiters. And there was one recruiter named Alyssa Hagstrom. Alyssa had like maybe 2 years of experience. And she would schedule one-on-ones with me. I had one-on-ones with all of my team, but she would schedule separate one-on-ones with me and say, in these one-on-ones, I just want to cover some of these topics that I'm not as good at yet. So she would be first very self-aware of knowing the gaps that she had. And then she'd say, can we just spend 30 minutes covering each one each week? And then in that one-on-one, after we went over something, like, here's how you would have handled a candidate call better. Here's how I think you could negotiate with the candidate better. Here's how I think you could do whatever. She would say, okay, based on this, can you give me actionable things that I could do to work on this? And then I can, on my next one-on-one, I could show you how I've done those and see if we're still on the right page. And I'd say, sure. And each time she would come to me with things she wanted to work on and learn. Now, maybe I think like if your manager is not supportive of that, that's a very telling sign of a bad culture. Because if you have someone that hungry to grow that much, like you want to give them everything they can to grow because they'll only help you. And here's what's really cool. She only had 2 years of experience. Remember this. And one day she came to me and said, you know, what's funny is like, we were a publicly traded company, 2.5 billion at the time. And she's like, we don't have an internship program. I said, I know it sucks. So I want to do one. I don't have the time. And she's like, what if I built it? And I was like, well, I don't want you not doing your current job so you could build this thing because we're very busy and you need to do that. She's like, that's fine. What if I built it on top of that? And I was like, okay, I go and do it. And she's like, okay, but after this, I might ask for a promotion. She literally said that to me. And I was like, okay, let's just see how you do first, And it sucks. Here's a quote, just FYI, that I think everyone should know. Like, if you do more than what you're paid for, okay, if you do more than what you're paid for, eventually you will get paid for more than you do. And so she was working more hours than she should have. Like she wasn't working 70, 80 hours a week, but more than she should have because she was doing her actual job. And then she was building this internship program. Now she launched it for Overstock and Overstock got awarded, I forgot by who, I think it was Comparably or whomever, the #1 rated internship program in the country that year that she launched it. And then she sat down with me in a separate one-on-one and she's like, I think I should get promoted to this title, campus, whatever. And I was like, I had I couldn't even say no. I was like, yeah, totally. I was like, why don't you go back and do some research on what you think a good salary range? She's like, no, I already did the research. Here you go. And she showed me comp plans and everything. She gave me options. I was like, shit. I like, okay, I guess I got to give it. And I literally just gave her the promotion on the spot. But that's an example of like, how do you demonstrate lifelong learning is you understand like what you're good at, but then that comes with knowing what you're not good at. And then asking to learn, asking if your manager or your company can put things into place for you to learn those things that you don't have yet to close the gap. Because once you've learned that, you're ready for that next level. So that'd be my answer.
That's awesome. That's such a fun story too.
Yeah.
I want to meet her. She seems cool.
You should.
Cool. The
Here,
next,
I'll put her LinkedIn profile just so
yeah,
everyone
we
can
can all
meet
connect.
She's such a badass.
That's awesome. Maybe a few more questions. I think
Sure.
they're gonna keep coming in, so we can sit here all
Did
day.
any of you copy and paste something or post it on Instagram or what's it called? Because we're gonna select someone.
Yeah, tag the hashtag. Final question for the day, let's say,
Okay.
let's make sure it's a good one. This is one I get a lot too, so I'll ask. Would you recommend getting the paid version of LinkedIn so it's easier to cold message hiring managers or other contacts? Have you seen the value in having the premium version of LinkedIn?
No. So I mean, I'm sure there is value though. I can't say there isn't. But none of our clients use it yet. They haven't had to because I think there's so many ways you can like connect with people, send messages in that initial connection request. You can message them on user groups. And here's like a really cool thing. Once you join a user group, you can message them, email them in any sort of way, right? And then here, I'll give you this too. Give me a second. I'm gonna in the chat, I'll put a list of tools that allow you to find people's email addresses. It's a really cool tool. So like a lot of our clients are messaging on LinkedIn, but they're also emailing, especially hiring managers, just because executives are not using LinkedIn as much as like a recruiter would. So they get way higher conversion on that. I just put the thing. So, and then here, sorry, I just noticed I've been putting all these chats in here, but they weren't going to everyone. So here's the link to the apply to book a call with us. And then here's the link to the free guide I was talking about. If you guys didn't get
Be
that before.
including all of these in the follow-up email too. So
Okay, cool.
Perfect. Cool. Well, this has been incredible. Like I said a few minutes ago, I've learned a lot, so I'm sure that everyone else has too. So thank you so much for taking
Of
an
course.
hour
Thank
and
you
a half,
guys.
an hour and 45 of your day to teach us all these really practical job searches that I know are going to help a lot of people land jobs in climate, kind of all of that. So I cannot
Awesome.
thank you enough. This has been
You're
incredible.
welcome. Thank you for having me. And thank you again for everyone who joined. Really appreciate you guys. We'll talk soon. Connect on LinkedIn, connect wherever, and stay in touch, okay?
Perfect.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.